I think the Last Supper in the Bible, you see multiple chapters of Jesus saying some very important things. But it was also clear the disciples didn't really understand it. And so, can you, as the viewer, follow, trust, have faith, even when you don't understand?
We started covering The Chosen season 1, step by step. And when we began, like the song of The Chosen, Walking on Water, no one knew how the audience was going to respond. And yet, you started Walking on Water, and here we are,
Yes.
The Last Supper. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey of faith?
Yeah, I mean, from day one, like you mentioned, the opening theme song is, come on in, walk on the water. I got no trouble with the mess that you've been, and that applied to us as well as filmmakers. As I'm coming off of a career failure, I don't know if I'm ever going to make another movie or TV show again. I have a huge step of faith in thinking that, all right, let's try to crowdfund a television show, which is a ludicrous idea, especially at the level that we had to, the millions of dollars that we needed, which hadn't ever been done before for a show like this. And each step was God ordained, meaning I just, none of it made sense. So I just constantly had to go, well, I don't know if this is going to work, but it's the only chance we have. It's the only way forward. And that's been happening then, and it's happened today. We're still walking in faith. We're still not sure where this is going to go. I still am just trying to do my best to honor God, to tell a good story, to be faithful to the original stories while still being entertaining and accessible to modern audiences. And everything about this show and the journey of it has been unprecedented and unpredictable. And I think that's a good thing. I think it allows me to stay humble, surrendered, and broken.
Wow. Oof, so powerful. Just those two words right there,
Yeah.
surrender and humble.
Yeah.
But as we get ready to just take in what's coming in next season, how do you maintain that balance of the historical and the biblical, but also trying to appeal to the audience that it's just following you and expecting an entertaining and drama-filled series?
Yeah, so I've got two jobs. One is to make a good television show, and that has its own rules, its own, I think, things about it that are necessary in order to just cause an audience to want to watch multiple seasons, multiple episodes. And so my co-writers and I are first and foremost trying to make a good television show, because if we don't, then the important things that we want to say get lost anyway. But the second thing is I need to be faithful to the original source material, and I need to make sure that I'm not contradicting the character or intentions of Jesus in the Gospels. And so as long as I'm doing that, as long as even when we're adding context that we don't get just from reading the words, that we're still pursuing capital T truth, even when we're not using facts. Capital T truth is what we're going after. I think we've been, I would say, although we have people who disagree, that we've been successful doing that so far, and the key is to just maintain that, and that requires a lot of listening, a lot of humility.
Again, so it's a recurring theme,
Yes.
this humility
Yes.
that you need to approach this. So obviously, specifically, with what lies ahead, how much of the audience response has influenced your writing?
Yeah, I would say none. I cannot think about avoiding criticism or gaining praise. I have to be pure in the writing process. Now, occasionally, of course, as an artist, you want people to understand, you want people to receive what you're doing. So occasionally, if there's something that is clearly confusing for people, you want to make it less confusing. There's been a couple times where the audience reaction to a season or to a character was so strong, you go, oh, okay, we had a good instinct about that character, let's keep leaning into that. It's clearly resonating. So obviously I'm not trying to cause the audience to dislike something, but I'm also not trying to cause them to love it. I'm just trying to make the best show that I can to honor God and the character of the Gospels. And if I worry too much about how audiences will respond, it will be crippling.
What would you like people to remember about the Last Supper?
I think the Last Supper, in the Bible, you see multiple chapters of Jesus saying some very important things. But it was also clear the disciples didn't really understand it. And so, can you, as the viewer, follow, trust, have faith, even when you don't understand? The story of season 5 is we see the people who didn't understand and therefore rejected. They assumed, because I don't understand it, it must be wrong, I must reject it. Those who, even though they didn't understand, still trusted and followed because they believed in the person, the one who was giving them this truth. I don't understand, but I know you, and I'm going to follow, and I'm going to trust that this will be revealed in time. Today we struggle with that still. If we don't understand someone or something, we reject. And I think that's a good lesson to take away from this season is I don't want to make the mistakes of the past. I want to, even when I don't understand, I want to seek more understanding, and I want to remain humble enough to recognize that just because I don't understand doesn't mean it's not true.
So playing Jesus, it's an incredible, big task. How do you prepare as an actor to portray him?
I pray a lot. I really try to dive into my own faith and start, trying to think of all the things that are coming up in a particular season, and praying on how Jesus might have seen them, and praying for wisdom and guidance and discernment and how I portray those, and then just trying to get out of the way, trying to be sort of like a mirror that reflects the divine through my own humanity, as flawed as it is. So, and of course, memorizing the lines helps. It's always helpful.
Always. So the audience has received The Chosen since season 1 with this tremendous acceptance. You've talked about encounters with them. Can you share a little bit of that, and how does that play into the role of Jesus?
I don't know that it actively influences my performance, individual encounters. I think those encounters have an impact on me personally. And giving me this opportunity to be more open and vulnerable to those encounters, ultimately, I think, is how I hope to influence the role and portray Jesus as somebody who was the most vulnerable, the most committed to the needs of others, but also needing at times to take care of himself, to have to go up to the mountain to pray alone, to recharge. Humans can take a toll. Being with people that are constantly asking for things from him, I think took its toll, and so he would need to go and recharge in the wilderness by himself. So I think knowing that and knowing that, there may be days where I feel overwhelmed or, by what I'm given to do, but then just taking some time to be by myself and to pray, that usually corrects the course and puts me back in the driver's seat and ready to take on the next day.
And now the Last Supper. What would you want the audiences to take from the Last Supper as it unfolds in theaters?
I think that despite what everyone that week, what all the disciples see and hear, Jesus wants them to trust that he knows what he's doing. He's tried to warn them that things are going to be tough and that they're going to panic and they're going to freak out, but to trust him that this was the way things had to be done. So I think I want audiences to feel that as well, and how they can apply that in their own lives. How do we trust Jesus with our troubles and trials as they occur? Do we really give them over to him? Do we really trust him with the things we struggle with. And if we don't, then I think we have a little more work to do.
Okay. And now my final question, just to the Latino community that has been so supportive of the show as well. Just your thoughts on why they should continue to support The Chosen.
I think because, Jesus is for everyone. I think the message is for everyone in every language, and it's why we're translating it into 600 languages. We're at about 100 right now, which makes it the most translated television show in history, from what I understand. So I think we're so grateful for the Latino audience and their support, and knowing that they are part of something really special as we continue to expand our language base, and more people will get to experience, the joy and the sorrows and the greatest story ever told in their own language, just as the Latino people have.
Guys, from season 1 to season 5, what has been the most impactful scene for you guys?
Wow, that's a fun question to ponder.
Can I say, in the presence of these two, it's one of the, I think it might be the first day that I'm on set, is the miracle of the fish, which, for those who haven't seen the show, in season 1, there's this amazing moment where we're all fishing and thousands of fish kind of arrive after Jesus interacts with us. And it was kind of, it's how I always kind of see the show. We're kind of all, sharing each other's dressing rooms, and we're kind of like got a couple of chairs, and the show was really in its infancy, and we kind of just felt like a family, and it was like a mom and pop shop kind of thing, like this small production. And even though the infrastructure around us has grown, and the way in which the show is digested across the world has grown, we still film like that day when we did the miracle of the fish. It was so much fun, and I always point to that as like my favorite kind of scene that I've shot. If you said season 1 to 5, I'll choose that season 1 moment.
I
sure.
will keep it in the theme of water. And mine was the walking on water in the boat scene, because we shot that for 2 days from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. And that when you're shooting like that, it's sort of time starts to not make sense at all. And so we're just there in these boats and the waves going, and every time we sort of were this nice little merry band of actors and then into disciples, and the water would start and you'd hear the sort of like sound of the it would go boom, boom, and then the sprinkler system would go shh, and we're like rowing and rowing. My lats have never recovered. And that feeling it felt like a jump. Like we had this miracle of the fish, and then all of a sudden we're in this boat in this giant blue screen tank, and it just was like a absolute pinch me moment for me.
Yeah.
That scene has a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, I think the first day of filming, our scene, and the first scene that we played, I think that like the whole first, like just the first encounters, like the bar scene where you guys come in.
I think about that too.
Is that like
Like that those moments of like these first relationships being created. I think it was pretty special. It's like everyone is still feeling each other out, and I think those were kind of really, stayed with me. But
you know what I feel like too is the scene when we're walking through the marketplace in the first episode, going to Matthew's tax booth, because there we had a few days together, but then that day it was cold, but we were just figuring out. We're like, we got into the sort of rhythm of how we like to work together, how this comes together, and it just felt so fun and easy, and it was like, I could do this every day in my life, because it just felt so alive and fun.
And the only thing that was hindering was the fact that it was freezing cold. So our breaths would make this like like a little foggy. So what the solution for that, obviously, is to chew on ice,
which didn't work at all.
You guys should have come and done some of those scenes in Miami.
I know.
How about
like
that? No. Well, so people have responded to that. Just the friendship that you guys have on set actually translates into what we see the audience has responded, and I'm sure you are asked this question all the time. How has the show actually impacted your perspective on life, on humanity, after being on the show, a biblical, historical show?
I think that there are, I grew up Greek Orthodox, and, it's hard enough listening to the sermons in Greek and having to translate it in my mind. But, there can be moments where you're in church and you hear these parables, and you probably, especially as a 6-year-old, it's probably not the best way to digest that information. But I feel like people can watch the show and, there's a moment where somebody asks Jesus about the kingdom of heaven and when is it coming, and then hearing our show kind of have Jesus talking to someone, and explaining it to them. And you barely recognize, I haven't read the Bible before the show, so I barely recognized that it was scripture or a parable, but I was just learning as the character in the scene, learning from what he's saying. And he's saying things like, observe the lily, how they do not toil nor labor. I probably got the flower wrong, but you get the point. But it's just those kind of things that I never remember hearing, at church. But in the show, because there's context to it, someone's asked him the question, it just makes it that much more relatable. So that's definitely for me, growing up with it and not really paying attention, now it kind of makes a lot more sense.
So powerful.
I would say what's fascinating, and another sort of angle from that, is that a lot of us came into the show in sort of difficult points in our careers, maybe, or it's a really difficult life sometimes, starting out as an actor. And so I think for me, it was so eye-opening to come onto this set. And I had experience on different sets, and everyone's kind of like yelling, and you're never like told what's going on, and it feels super chaotic. And then coming onto this set and having the gift of spending so much time now these last 6 years on this set, where it feels like a family, where it feels like we are all here for one purpose, and it's to tell the story the best way we possibly can. It's not about like, we got to get this shot in before lunch, and it's like, no, it's way calmer than that. It's way more with love, with empathy. And the fact that we can sort of explore our own artistry and our creativity in this environment, I feel so much more at ease in it. And I feel like we really can take from this, and as we go on in life, make sure that the environments that we're in can feel creatively fulfilling and like a family and with love. I'm so fortunate and grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you for
every season had so many, a whole world of humanity explored, and that's an incredible gift. That's an incredible gift, and the fact that there's still behind the scenes, the people that are writing it still have the same passion to bring a full world, and each character, it's a hard job to juggle so many characters' stories in order for each character to feel unique and has their own story, and yet everything is cohesive and combined. And I think this ability to explore each season such mountains and valleys of emotions and the human experience is just something to be grateful for, which I am all the time.
Each one of you has a special relationship with Jesus in the season. You guys are very special characters also to the audience. Tell us how you approach just portraying Mary and Matthew.
Having been on the show for 7 years and are finishing our 5th season, I feel like my approach has just been more of bringing myself into the situation as Matthew, but also putting more Paris into it and reacting, and it involves a lot of listening and observing. So in season 5, you're gonna see Matthew really just take a seat, make sure he's keeping all the writing and records intact, but he's watching and observing and just trying to understand, because you're seeing people act kind of out of pocket, which is an expression of saying that they're not being their normal selves. And Matthew is someone that just needs evidence everywhere. It's just trying to process that. So that was my approach this season, is to kind of just take it all in. And as Paris, I'm taking it all in because our show's almost over, so I'm just enjoying every moment I can,
Oh, don't say that.
Every time I'm like, oh, we're nearing.
Yeah, we are
rapidly.
getting into the heavy stuff now.
Right. Well, not talking about the end, but about the beginning. I remember my first interview with you, Elizabeth, and I remember you said something very important at the time, and it was that for you, playing the role of a woman, a well-developed woman, was huge because there weren't that many roles. Now, 4 seasons later, as you got deeper into the gospel and the story, what resonates as really big to you about The Chosen?
I think it's getting to watch these characters go through various stages of transformation and growth, and depending on where you stop in the story, some character may be on top of the world and really confident and knowing what they're doing, and then a few episodes later, completely lost and confused and doubting and worried, and we just see these ups and downs through these characters' lives, and it's such a human thing. It's such a relatable depiction of life. Of life changes quickly, and tragic things happen, and also incredibly wonderful, miraculous things happen. And I think what's most beautiful about the show is that there is hope throughout, and a focus on moving forward and growing and holding on to love and care for each other. And I think that's something that's not always depicted in media, and it's nice that that it is. It's important to share with the world, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then in closing, I would just like to know if you guys had to summarize the message of The Chosen to millions of audiences out there, what would you say it is?
Human, real, and emotional.
Yeah. I think it's a historical period and a historical story that is, our attempt is to try to bring it to life in this human and relatable way, so that people can have their own feelings and opinions and experiences with these stories and with the messages that Jesus teaches. And I think that's a very rare opportunity these days.
You must know something. I do believe that Jesus is most likely the Messiah.
Why?
Why what?
Why do you believe that?
I've seen too much.
Then why are you doing this?
I suppose I have not seen enough.
Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem.
You can run on for a long time.
My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of thieves!
By what authority are you doing these things?
My own!
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
We have a problem. Jesus operates entirely outside our jurisdiction. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees! Stop this at once! The world is changing, and Jesus offers a vision to redeem it. He's not the Messiah!
Tell him that God's gonna cut you down.
Declaring yourself a sovereign, Rome will descend on us all!
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
The Pharisees are plotting to arrest Jesus of Nazareth.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
I want peace, just like you. If you go through with this, our alliance is over.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
There is talk of a collaborator from within of his own followers.
Go and tell that midnight rider.
City's on edge. If you succeed, I'll be the one left to pick up the pieces.
Go tell that long-tongued liar.
I ask that you keep your distance from me in Jerusalem these next few days.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
You serpents! How will you escape being condemned to hell?
What have you done? Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.